The massive ship hung in the sky above Nevada like a silver moon that had forgotten its place. Commander Velthar stood at the viewing window looking down at the blue and green planet below. His 4 eyes blinked slowly as he studied the world that had caught the attention of the Galactic Coalition. Earth. Such a simple name for a planet full of complex creatures. Velthar was a Kryn, a member of one of the most feared warrior races in the known galaxy. He stood 8 feet tall with skin the color of storm clouds. His body was built for combat, with muscles that could bend steel and reflexes faster than most species could track. But right now he felt something unusual. He felt nervous. "Commander, the humans are ready for us," said his second officer through the communication device. Velthar touched the translator attached to his chest. The small device would turn his words into human language and their words into his own. "Prepare for landing. Full diplomatic protocols." The ship descended smoothly through Earth's atmosphere. Velthar had visited dozens of planets, but something about this one felt different. The humans were strange. They were weak compared to most species in the galaxy. They had no natural weapons, no thick skin, no poison glands, yet they had built remarkable things. Their technology was impressive for such a young civilization. The landing site was in the middle of a desert. Hot air shimmered above the sand as the ship touched down with barely a sound. Velthar straightened his uniform and walked toward the exit. Behind him, 3 other Kryn officers followed in formation. The door opened and Earth's air rushed in. It was hot and dry, carrying strange smells that Velthar's translator analyzed and cataloged. He stepped out onto the surface and saw them waiting. Humans. So small. So fragile-looking. A man stepped forward. He had short dark hair and wore a blue uniform with symbols Velthar recognized as military rank. The human smiled, showing his teeth. Velthar knew this was a friendly gesture for humans, though for Kryn, showing teeth meant aggression. "Welcome to Earth, Commander. I'm Lieutenant Jake Morrison." The human extended his hand forward, palm empty. Velthar stared at the offered hand. His translator provided information about human greeting customs. He was supposed to grasp it. Carefully, he reached out and wrapped his large hand around the human's smaller one. The human's skin was warm and soft. Velthar was surprised by this. He had expected humans to feel cold like machines. "I am Commander Velthar of the Kryn Empire," he said, his translator converting his words into English. "We come to evaluate your species for coalition membership." A woman stepped forward next. She had red hair tied back and wore a white coat over her uniform. Her eyes were bright with excitement. "I'm Dr. Helen Price, Commander. I'm a xenobiologist. I've been studying your species' biology from the information you sent ahead." "Fascinating stuff." Velthar released Jake's hand and gave a formal nod. "Your planet has shown unexpected advancement. The Coalition wishes to understand your species better before making decisions about membership." "We're honored," Jake said. "We've prepared quarters for you and your team at our facility. Over the next week, we'll show you our technology, our culture, and our way of life." Velthar looked around at the desert, then at the buildings in the distance. "Our nutritional needs are specific. We have brought our own food supplies." Helen's eyes lit up even more. "Of course, we understand. But we'd also love to share some of our food with you. It's a big part of human culture, food." Velthar's translator seemed confused by the way she said the word. "You mean nutritional supplements?" Jake laughed. It was a warm sound. "Not exactly. You'll see what we mean." They walked toward a large vehicle that would transport them to the human facility. Velthar noticed how the humans moved. They were relaxed, informal. They smiled and made small talk. This was very different from Kryn behavior. Kryn were efficient. They spoke only when necessary. They didn't waste time on pleasantries. The vehicle ride took 30 minutes. Velthar watched the landscape change from desert to buildings and roads. Humans were everywhere, moving in their vehicles, walking on pathways, going about their daily lives. They seemed so carefree. "Commander," Helen said from the seat across from him, "I have to ask. Our research shows that the Kryn eliminated your sense of taste about 3,000 years ago. Is that correct?" Velthar nodded. "Yes, our ancestors determined that taste sensation was inefficient. It distracted warriors from their duties. Food is fuel, nothing more. We consume nutrient paste that provides all necessary vitamins and minerals. It is practical, but don't you miss the experience of eating?" Helen asked. "The flavors, the textures, the enjoyment of a good meal?" Velthar considered this. "One cannot miss what one has never known." I have consumed nutrient paste my entire life. It serves its purpose. Jake and Helen exchanged a look that Velthar couldn't interpret. The facility was impressive. It was a combination of military base and research center. Velthar and his team were given rooms that had been adapted for their size and needs. Everything was efficient and well organized. The humans were trying hard to make them comfortable. That evening, there was a formal dinner. Velthar sat at a long table with human officials and scientists. They asked questions about Kryn culture and technology. Velthar answered with military precision. But he noticed something strange. The humans weren't just sitting and talking. They were eating. Not nutrient paste, but actual prepared foods, plates of different colored items, steaming and fragrant. The humans seemed to enjoy putting these items in their mouths. They made pleased sounds. They smiled while chewing. Some even closed their eyes as if experiencing something profound. Velthar watched a man carefully cut a piece of brown meat and place it in his mouth. The man's face relaxed. He made a satisfied sound. "Is the food pleasant?" Velthar asked, curious despite himself. The man looked surprised by the question. "Pleasant? Commander, this steak is incredible. Perfectly seasoned, cooked just right. It's delicious. Delicious." Velthar's translator provided a definition, extremely pleasant to taste. Such a strange concept. He looked at his own cup of gray nutrient paste and drank it efficiently. It had no taste. It was just fuel. Helen noticed him watching. "Would you like to try some, Commander? Just a small bite?" Velthar felt his fellow Kryn officers stiffen. In their culture, eating for pleasure was considered primitive, weak. Warriors didn't need pleasure. They needed efficiency. "That would be inappropriate," Velthar said firmly. "We must maintain our protocols." "Of course," Helen said, but she smiled as if she knew something he didn't. That night, lying in his quarters, Velthar thought about what he had seen. The humans had seemed so happy while eating, so connected to each other and to the moment. There had been laughter at that table, warmth, things that were rare among the Kryn. He wondered what it would be like to taste something, to experience flavor. But he pushed the thought away. Such thinking was dangerous. He was a commander. He had a duty to his people and to the mission. Still, as he drifted toward sleep, he couldn't stop thinking about the way that human had smiled while eating his steak. There had been something in that smile, something that looked almost like joy. Velthar had never experienced joy from eating. He wasn't sure he had ever experienced joy at all. The hamburger incident was classified immediately. Helen insisted that Velthar spend the night in a medical observation room, while his brain adjusted to the sudden activation of his taste receptors. The commander agreed, still shaken by what he had experienced. Jake visited him around midnight, bringing water and checking on him. Velthar sat on the edge of the medical bed, staring at his hands as if they belonged to someone else. "I cannot stop thinking about it," Velthar said without looking up. "That taste. Those sensations. Jake, my entire civilization has built itself on the idea that we are superior because we eliminated base pleasures. We pride ourselves on efficiency, on discipline, on putting duty above everything else, and now I discover that we have been missing something this profound." Jake pulled up a chair and sat down. "It's got to be confusing." "Confusing does not begin to describe it." Velthar finally looked at him. "I felt happiness today, real happiness from something as simple as eating. I have served my people for 40 years. I have won battles, earned medals, commanded respect. And none of that ever made me feel what that hamburger made me feel. Food does that to us," Jake said. "It's not just about the taste, though, that's part of it. It's about the experience, the memories it creates, the way it brings people together." Velthar stood and paced the small room. "I need to understand this completely. If I am going to report on human culture, I need to know the full scope of this. What other foods exist? What other sensations are there?" "Commander, there are thousands of different foods. Every culture has its own cuisine. Every region has its specialties. You could spend years exploring it all. Then we start tomorrow." Velthar's voice was firm. "I want to experience as much as possible. But secretly, my second officer Krell is already suspicious. If he discovers what happened today, he will report me to the High Command." Jake nodded. "We'll be careful. Helen wants to monitor your reactions anyway. Make sure we don't overwhelm your system again. We'll go slow, introduce foods gradually. But slow was not in Velthar's nature. The next morning, he insisted on trying breakfast foods. Eggs confused him. They were soft and rich, tasting somehow like sunlight felt. Bacon made him sit down heavily and declare that humans had clearly discovered one of the secrets of the universe. Toast with butter seemed too simple to be meaningful until he actually tasted it and understood that sometimes simple was exactly what was needed. Coffee was a revelation. Not just the taste, which was bitter and complex, but the way it made him feel more alert, more focused. He drank 3 cups before Helen made him stop. Caffeine affects Kryn physiology more intensely than human, she warned. You're already vibrating. Velthar looked at his shaking hands. This is an acceptable side effect. They moved through the day carefully. Helen had created a schedule, a systematic approach to introducing Velthar to different types of food while monitoring his neural responses. But Velthar kept wanting to go faster, try more, experience everything. Lunch was pizza. Jake ordered it from a local restaurant, and when the boxes arrived, Velthar opened them like they contained alien artifacts. The smell alone made him dizzy. How do humans concentrate on anything when food smells like this? He asked. We're used to it, Pete said, grabbing a slice. But yeah, fresh pizza is hard to resist. Velthar picked up a slice, cheese stretching in long strings. He took a bite and his eyes went unfocused. The combination of bread, tomato sauce, cheese, and seasonings created a harmony that seemed impossible. Each ingredient enhanced the others. He ate 4 slices before speaking. This should not be possible. How can something that looks so simple taste so complex? That's the art of cooking, Helen explained, taking notes on her tablet. It's about combining ingredients in ways that create more than the sum of their parts. Your brain is processing not just individual flavors, but how they interact with each other. That afternoon, they tried fruit. Fresh strawberries made Velthar laugh. Actually laugh. The sound startled everyone, including Velthar himself. Kryn did not laugh. It was considered undignified. But the bright, sweet flavor of the strawberry was so unexpected, so purely joyful, that laughter just burst out of him. I apologize, he said, trying to compose himself. Don't, Jake said, grinning. That was awesome. When's the last time you laughed? Velthar thought about it. Never, Kryn, do not laugh. Well, you just did. How did it feel? Strange, vulnerable, wonderful. They saved chocolate for the end of the day. Helen thought it was risky, but Velthar insisted. When the piece of dark chocolate melted on his tongue, he went completely still. His eyes closed. His breathing slowed. For a full minute, he didn't move. Commander? Helen asked, concerned. Velthar opened his eyes slowly. I need a moment alone. They left him in the room. Through the observation window, they watched him sit in meditation position, processing what he had experienced. Chocolate had triggered something deeper than pleasure. It had triggered an emotional response that shook his entire understanding of himself. When they returned an hour later, Velthar was calmer, but his eyes looked different. More aware, more alive. I have been thinking, he said. The Kryn eliminated taste pleasure 3,000 years ago. We were told it was because it made us weak, distracted us from our warrior duties. But now I wonder if that was truly the reason. What do you mean? Helen asked. Control. Velthar's voice was quiet but intense. If you remove a being's ability to experience pleasure from something as basic as eating, you remove their ability to seek joy. You make them dependent on duty, on orders, on the structure provided by authority. A warrior who has never known pleasure is a warrior who will never question why they fight. The room went silent. Jake and Helen exchanged looks. That's a pretty heavy realization, Jake said finally. It is the truth. Velthar stood. My people have been controlled for 3,000 years, and we never knew it because we had nothing to compare it to. Until now. Until I tasted your food and realized what we had lost. Over the next days, they continued the experiment. Velthar tried Thai curry and nearly wept at the combination of spicy heat and complex flavors. He discovered that pain and pleasure could exist together in food and that somehow made both sensations more intense. Mexican food fascinated him. The way different salsas could completely change a dish, the layering of flavors, the use of spice not just for heat, but for depth. He spent an entire afternoon with a Mexican chef, learning about different types of peppers and their characteristics. Pasta with tomato sauce made him philosophical. This is comfort food, you called it? He asked Helen. Yes. Food that makes you feel safe, cared for. Often it's food we ate as children or food that reminds us of home. I have never felt comforted by food before, Velthar said, eating another forkful. This changes everything. If food can provide comfort, it is not just fuel, it is medicine for the spirit. But the real test came on the 5th day when Pete decided Velthar was ready for ice cream. Commander, this might be intense, Pete warned, scooping vanilla ice cream into a bowl. It's cold, sweet, creamy. All things your brain has never experienced together. Velthar took the bowl with both hands. He looked at the white substance, smooth and frozen. He could feel the cold through the bowl. Carefully, he lifted a spoonful to his mouth. The moment it touched his tongue, Velthar dropped to his knees. Not from pain, from overwhelming sensation, cold and sweet and smooth all at once. The texture was unlike anything he'd experienced. As it melted, the flavor intensified. His entire body shivered. Commander! Helen rushed forward with her scanner. Velthar held up a hand, stopping her. He finished the spoonful, swallowing slowly. Tears ran down his face freely now. I understand now why humans cry, he said, his voice rough. This sensation is so beautiful it causes pain. How is it possible that something can feel this good? He ate the entire bowl slowly, experiencing each spoonful like it was his first. When he finished, he sat on the floor, the empty bowl in his lap, and laughed and cried at the same time. What have you done to me? He asked, but he was smiling. We showed you what life can be, Jake said gently. Velthar looked up at them. I cannot go back. I cannot return to nutrient paste knowing this exists. I cannot return to my people and pretend that we have not lost something essential to being alive. So what will you do? Helen asked. I need time to think. To process. He stood, setting the bowl aside. But I know one thing. I need to share this with others of my kind. If I have been freed, others deserve that freedom too. That's risky, Jake warned, I know, but it is the right thing to do. Velthar looked at each of them. You have given me something more valuable than technology or alliance. You have given me the ability to feel joy. I must share that gift. That night, Velthar began planning carefully. There were others in his crew who had shown signs of questioning Kryn culture. Warriors who seemed curious about humans, who lingered at meals watching the humans eat, who asked questions about emotions and art and pleasure. He would approach them carefully, one at a time, and he would offer them the same choice he had been given, to taste what they had been missing, and to decide for themselves if their people's way was truly superior. The revolution was beginning, and it started with ice cream. 3 days passed in meetings and presentations. Velthar learned about human technology, their governments, their history of wars and peace. The humans were contradictory creatures. They could be violent and gentle, logical and emotional, efficient and wasteful all at the same time. But what puzzled Velthar most was their relationship with food. Everywhere he went, humans were eating. Not just consuming nutrients, but actually spending time preparing food, arranging it on plates, sharing it with others. They had entire buildings dedicated to preparing and serving food. They called them restaurants. There were thousands of them in every human city. Why do you dedicate so many resources to food preparation? Velthar asked Jake during a tour of the facility's cafeteria. Nutrient paste would be more efficient. Jake picked up an apple from a bowl and tossed it in the air, catching it smoothly. Because efficiency isn't everything, Commander. Food is about more than just fuel. It's about culture, tradition, love, comfort. Some of my best memories are of meals with my family. Memories of consuming nutrients? Velthar couldn't hide his confusion. No, memories of being together, of my mom's cooking on holidays, of laughing around the dinner table, of tasting something amazing for the first time. Jake bit into the apple with a satisfying crunch. Food connects us to each other and to our past. Velthar watched juice run down Jake's chin. The human wiped it away and smiled. There was that expression again, that look of simple pleasure. On the 4th day, Jake invited Velthar to something called a cookout. It's casual, Commander. Just friends and food. I think you'd find it educational. Velthar agreed, though he wasn't sure why. Perhaps curiosity. Perhaps something else he couldn't name. The cookout was in a park with green grass and large trees. Dozens of humans gathered around metal devices that produced smoke and heat. Children ran and played. Adults stood in groups talking and laughing. Music played from speakers. It looked chaotic to Velthar. Inefficient, yet everyone seemed happy. Commander, this is my friend Pete Davis. Jake introduced a large man with a thick beard who stood at one of the smoking devices. Pete takes his grilling very seriously. Pete wiped his hand on his apron and shook Velthar's hand firmly. Welcome, Commander. Hope you're hungry. I do not experience hunger in the way you do, Velthar said. I consume nutrients on a schedule, Pete laughed. Well, maybe we can change that. Velthar watched Pete work. The human's focus was intense as he turned pieces of meat on the hot metal grate. He adjusted heat levels, checked temperatures, added seasonings with careful precision. His movements had the concentration of a starship pilot during battle maneuvers. You approach this task with great seriousness, Velthar observed. Cooking is an art. Commander, Pete said, not looking away from his work. Anyone can burn meat. But to cook it perfectly, to bring out all the flavors, to make it tender and juicy, that takes skill and care. Helen appeared at Velthar's side carrying a white plate. On it sat something that looked simple but smelled complex. His translator analyzed the chemical compounds and found no toxins but hundreds of aromatic molecules. Commander, Helen said gently, I know this is outside your cultural norms, but I've been reviewing the medical scans we took when you arrived. Your taste receptors are still there. The Kryn genetic modifications didn't remove them, just deactivated them. Strong enough stimuli might reactivate the neural pathways. Velthar looked at the item on the plate. Jake had called it a hamburger. Cooked meat between pieces of soft bread with vegetables and melted cheese. It looked messy, inefficient, primitive. My people consider eating for pleasure to be weakness, Velthar said quietly. I know, Helen replied, but you're here to learn about us. This is who we are. This is important to us. Just one bite, Commander. For science, Velthar looked around. The other humans at the cookout were watching, but trying not to be obvious about it. His own Kryn officers stood at a distance, their postures stiff with disapproval. He thought about his mission. Understanding humans. Learning their culture. Making an informed recommendation to the coalition. Very well, he said. For diplomatic purposes. He picked up the hamburger with both hands. It was warm and soft. Juices ran between his fingers. He brought it to his mouth and took a careful bite. For 3 seconds, nothing happened. His teeth cut through the layers. His tongue, dormant for his entire life, made contact with the food. He began to chew. Then the world exploded. Flavor erupted across his tongue like a supernova. The rich, deep taste of cooked meat. The sharp, tangy bite of cheese. The fresh crunch of lettuce. The sweet softness of the bread. Each element was distinct yet harmonious. His brain, unprepared for such sensory input, struggled to process the avalanche of information. Velthar's legs wobbled. His 4 eyes went wide. His translator began beeping rapidly as his heart rate spiked. The hamburger fell from his hands as he stumbled backward. Pete caught him before he hit the ground. Whoa, easy there, big guy. Commander, are you okay? Jake rushed forward. Helen already had a medical scanner out, running it over Velthar's head. His neural activity is off the charts. The taste receptors activated all at once. His brain is being overwhelmed by sensory data it's never processed before. Velthar couldn't speak, couldn't think. The taste was still in his mouth, still coating his tongue. It was the most intense experience of his life. Colors seemed brighter. Sounds were clearer. Every sensation was amplified. He finally managed to swallow. His breathing was rapid. His hands trembled. What? He gasped. Was that? That was a cheeseburger, Pete said, looking worried. Maybe we should have started with something less intense. Velthar straightened slowly, helped by Jake and Pete. He looked at the fallen hamburger on the ground, then at the humans around him. I have served 40 years as a Kryn warrior. I have fought in 3 major conflicts. I have commanded ships and troops. I have faced death without fear. He paused, struggling for words. And that single bite of food has shaken my understanding of reality more than anything in my entire life. Helen guided him to a chair. Sit down, Commander. Let your system adjust. Velthar sat, his mind racing. How could something so simple be so powerful? How had his people lived without this for 3,000 years? What else had they given up in the name of efficiency? The sensation, he said slowly, was not unpleasant. Jake laughed with relief. Well, that's good. We were worried we'd killed you. It was more than not unpleasant, Velthar continued. It was overwhelming, beautiful. I felt joy. Actual joy. From consuming nutrients. He looked up at Helen. How is this possible? How do humans function if every meal produces such sensations? We're used to it, Helen explained. Our brains developed with taste. Yours is experiencing it for the first time. It's like turning on a light in a room that's been dark for your entire life. Velthar sat in silence for several minutes, processing. The humans gave him space, though they watched him carefully. Finally, he spoke. I need to understand this. If my species has suppressed something so profound, I must know what we have lost. Helen smiled. We were hoping you'd say that. But this must remain confidential, Velthar added quickly. If my superiors learn that I experience pleasure from food, I could face severe consequences. Understood, Jake agreed. This stays between us. Pete picked up the fallen hamburger and tossed it in the trash. Don't worry, Commander. We'll make you a fresh one, and this time maybe you should sit down first. Velthar watched Pete prepare another hamburger. His hand still trembled slightly. His mind still reeled from the experience. But beneath the shock there was something else. Curiosity. Excitement. A hunger that had nothing to do with nutritional needs. When Pete handed him the new hamburger, Velthar took it carefully. He sat down, braced himself, and took another bite. This time he was ready for the explosion of taste. This time he could focus on the individual elements, the seasoning on the meat, the way the cheese melted into it, the contrast of textures, the harmony of flavors. This time he didn't stumble. Instead, he closed his eyes and let himself experience it fully. When he opened his eyes again, tears were running down his face. He hadn't known Kryn could cry from emotions other than pain. Commander? Helen asked softly. I understand now, Velthar said quietly, why humans smile when they eat. This is not just nutrition. This is connection to life itself. This is being present in the moment. This is joy in its purest form. He looked at the half-eaten hamburger in his hands. My people have been lied to. We were told pleasure was weakness. But this makes me feel alive in a way I never have before. How can that be weakness? Jake sat down next to him. It's not. It's what makes life worth living. Velthar finished the hamburger slowly, savoring every bite. When he was done, he sat back and looked at the sky. The sun was setting, painting clouds in colors he'd never really noticed before. Or maybe he had noticed but never really seen. What else can you show me? He asked. The 20 new Kryn officers arrived on a Tuesday morning with military precision. They exited their transport ship in perfect formation, expecting a standard cultural evaluation mission. What they did not expect was to find Commander Velthar waiting for them with a smile on his face. Officer Trin, the leader of the new group, stopped in his tracks. Commander Velthar, you are displaying emotional expression. Yes, Velthar said simply. You will understand why soon enough. Welcome to Earth. The humans had prepared extensively for this moment. Jake had recruited a dozen volunteers from various departments. Helen had medical stations ready. Pete had organized a team of chefs. They had 2 weeks to introduce 20 Kryn to human food culture and hoped that enough of them chose awakening over reporting them all. The first 3 days were spent on normal cultural exchanges, giving the new Kryn time to settle in and become comfortable with the humans. Velthar watched them carefully, identifying those who seemed most curious, most open, most likely to accept what they were about to offer. On the 4th day, they began. They started with Officer Trin because he was the leader and his acceptance would influence others. Jake prepared something simple but impactful. A perfectly cooked piece of salmon with lemon and herbs. This is fish from Earth's oceans, Jake explained. Humans have been eating it for thousands of years. We cook it to enhance its natural flavors. Trin looked at Velthar. Commander, what is this really about? It is about giving you a choice, Velthar said. I cannot explain it. You must experience it. Trust me, Trin. I have served with you for 10 years. Have I ever led you wrong? Trin took a careful bite of the salmon. His eyes widened. His breathing changed. He took another bite, faster this time. And another. When the plate was empty, he looked up with something like fear in his eyes. What have you done to me? He asked. I have shown you what we lost 3,000 years ago, Velthar replied. The question is, what will you do with that knowledge? Trin was silent for a long time. Then he said, Show me more. Over the next week, they worked systematically. Some Kryn refused after the first taste, frightened by the intensity of the sensations and loyal to traditional ways. 2 of them requested to return to the ship immediately. Velthar let them go but asked them to remain silent, to think about what they had experienced before making reports. But 18 of the 20 embraced the experience fully. Each discovered their own preferences. Officer Vask became obsessed with baking, fascinated by how precise measurements and chemistry could create bread and pastries. Senior Lieutenant Myra discovered she loved spicy foods, the hotter the better. Young Ensign Court found that sushi made him contemplative and peaceful. The humans watched in amazement as the Kryn transformed. They became more talkative, more curious, more alive. They started asking questions about art, music, literature. They wanted to understand emotions they were now experiencing for the first time. Helen documented everything. "This is unprecedented," she told Jake. "We are witnessing the awakening of an entire group. Their brain scans show permanent changes. They are literally becoming different beings." But the success brought problems. With 22 Kryn now aware of the truth, keeping it secret became nearly impossible. Crew members who had not been part of the program noticed the changes. Questions were being asked. Suspicions were growing, and then Admiral Torth arrived. The message came through official channels with no warning. Admiral Torth of the Kryn High Command would be arriving in 3 days to personally inspect the Earth mission. Torth was famous, a legendary warrior and a true believer in Kryn superiority. He had personally designed many of the genetic modification programs that made modern Kryn what they were. "We are finished," Sketh said when they heard the news. "Torth will see what we have done and execute us all." "Maybe not," Velthar said, though he felt the same fear. "Maybe we can hide it for the duration of his visit." "Hide what?" Officer Dren asked. "That 22 of us are now smiling and laughing and acting like we enjoy being alive? Torth will notice within minutes." Zen spoke up. "Then we do not hide it. We show him, we offer him the same choice we were given." "That is insane," Trin said. "Torth designed these programs. He believes in them completely. He will never accept what we have learned." "Perhaps," Velthar said slowly. "But 3 months ago I would have said the same about myself. I was a loyal warrior who believed in efficiency above all else. And one hamburger changed everything." They spent 2 days arguing about what to do. Some wanted to hide everything and hope Torth left quickly. Others wanted to be honest and face the consequences. A few suggested they should refuse to go back to the Kryn Empire at all, that they should request asylum on Earth. In the end, Velthar made the decision. "We will be honest. We will show the Admiral what we have learned. If he rejects it, we will accept our fate. But we will not hide the truth." When Admiral Torth arrived, he was exactly as intimidating as his reputation suggested. He stood 9 feet tall with scars covering his body from decades of combat. His 4 eyes were cold and analytical. His presence made even the humans nervous. "Commander Velthar," Torth said formally, "I have come to evaluate your mission and determine why it has extended so far beyond original parameters." "I can explain, Admiral," Velthar said. "But words will not be sufficient. I request permission to show you something that has profound implications for our entire species." Torth's eyes narrowed. "Show me." They brought him to a private room. Pete had prepared a meal with care, knowing this might be the most important meal he ever cooked. A simple steak, perfectly seasoned and cooked with roasted vegetables and a side salad. Nothing fancy, but everything done right. Torth looked at the plate with clear disgust. "You brought me here to display primitive nutrition?" "Admiral," Velthar said, his voice steady despite his fear. "Our people eliminated taste pleasure 3,000 years ago. We were told it made us weak, distracted us from duty. I have discovered this was a lie. Careful, Commander." "I will not be careful, sir. Not anymore." Velthar sat across from the Admiral. "I have experienced something in these months that changed everything I believed. The humans reactivated my taste receptors. I have tasted food, Admiral. Real food with flavor and texture and complexity. And it did not make me weak. It made me understand what I was fighting for. It made me feel alive." "You admit to betraying Kryn values." "I admit to discovering what Kryn could be if we stopped lying to ourselves." Velthar gestured to the plate. "I ask only that you try 1 bite of this food. If you feel nothing, I will accept whatever punishment you decide. But if you feel what I felt, what all of us here have felt, then you will understand why this changes everything." The room was silent except for breathing. Torth stared at Velthar for a long moment. Then he looked at the plate, then at the humans watching nervously from the doorway. "1 bite," Torth said finally. Then I will render judgment." He picked up a fork, cut a piece of steak, and placed it in his mouth. Everyone stopped breathing. For 10 seconds, nothing happened. Torth chewed mechanically, his expression unchanged. Velthar felt his hope dying. Then Torth's eyes widened. All 4 of them. His hands gripped the table edge, hard enough that the metal bent. A sound came from his throat, low and primal. His entire massive body shook. "Admiral?" Velthar stood, concerned. Torth held up one hand, stopping him. The Admiral chewed slowly, his expression cycling through shock, confusion, wonder, and something that looked like grief. He swallowed carefully and sat back in his chair. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. "I fought in the Draconis Wars. I commanded fleets in the Rift Space campaigns. I have received every honor the Kryn Empire can bestow. I designed the genetic programs that shaped our entire civilization." He looked at the remaining food on his plate. "And in this moment, I would trade everything I have ever done to have experienced this 40 years ago." The room erupted in relief. Sketh laughed. Dren wiped tears from his eyes. Jake and Helen hugged each other. Pete pumped his fist in the air, but Torth was not finished. He looked at Velthar with an intensity that silenced everyone. "Commander, you said this was a lie. Explain." "The elimination of taste pleasure was not about efficiency," Velthar said. "It was about control. Warriors who never experience joy are warriors who never question orders. We were shaped to be perfect soldiers, not complete beings." Torth was silent for a long time. Then he said something shocking. "I know," everyone stared at him. "I know," Torth repeated. "I have always known. Those of us in the High Command, we have access to the old records. We know why the modifications were made. And I have spent my entire career enforcing them because I believed it made us strong." He looked at his hands. "But I was wrong. This feeling, the simple pleasure of tasting food, has shown me that we have not been strong. We have been empty." He finished the entire meal slowly, experiencing each bite. When the plate was empty, he sat quietly for several minutes. Then he looked at everyone in the room. "This cannot remain secret," he said. "Every Kryn deserves to know what has been taken from them. But we must be strategic. The other members of the High Command will resist. We need to change minds slowly, carefully." "How?" Zen asked. "We expand the cultural exchange program. We bring more Kryn to Earth officially." Word spread quietly among the human delegation. Commander Velthar was experiencing something unprecedented, and they were all part of keeping it secret. Jake created a schedule of food experiences while Helen monitored everything medically. Pete became the unofficial chef, preparing meals with careful attention to introducing new flavors gradually. But keeping secrets was difficult. Velthar's behavior was changing in ways that were hard to hide. He smiled more. He asked questions about human emotions and culture. He spent time just sitting and watching humans interact during meals, studying them like they were fascinating puzzles. His second officer, Krell, noticed everything. Krell was a traditional Kryn warrior, loyal to the old ways. He believed in efficiency and discipline above all else. And he was growing suspicious. "Commander," Krell said during one of their private briefings, "you have extended our mission here 3 times. The High Command is beginning to question your judgment. They wonder if the humans have somehow influenced you inappropriately." Velthar kept his expression neutral. "I am conducting thorough research. The humans are more complex than initial reports suggested. A complete evaluation requires time. You seem different." "Commander." Distracted. "Some of the crew say you have been seen eating human food." "I have been sampling their nutrition as part of cultural research," Velthar said carefully. "Understanding their food culture provides insight into their social structures." Krell's 4 eyes narrowed. "Be careful, Commander. The High Command does not look favorably on warriors who become too comfortable with other species. Remember your duty." After Krell left, Velthar sat alone in his quarters holding something Pete had given him earlier. Cookies, chocolate chip cookies, still warm. Pete had explained they were comfort food, something humans made to show care for each other. Velthar bit into one and closed his eyes. The sweetness, the chocolate, the texture of the cookie itself. It calmed the anxiety Krell's warning had created. Food as comfort, food as medicine for the spirit. His people had thrown this away in the name of efficiency. He made a decision. He could not do this alone anymore. He needed allies. Over the next week, Velthar carefully identified 3 members of his crew who showed signs of questioning their culture. Lieutenant Sketh was young, only 20 years old. She often watched humans with open curiosity. Officer Dren was a veteran, 60 years old and nearing retirement. He had fought in multiple wars and lately seemed tired of fighting. Ensign Paul was mid-career, 35 years old, and had mentioned once that he sometimes wondered what Kryn life was like before the modifications. Velthar approached each of them separately, carefully. He brought them to meet with the humans in private settings. He explained what he had discovered and offered them a choice. Sketh went first. She was nervous, her young face showing unusual emotion for a Kryn. Jake had prepared something simple, a grilled cheese sandwich and tomato soup. "This is traditional human comfort food," Jake explained. "Simple but satisfying." Sketh held the sandwich with trembling hands. "If I do this, I can never go back, can I?" "No," Velthar said honestly. "Once you know what you have been missing, you cannot unknow it. But you deserve the choice. That is all I am offering." "A choice." Sketh took a bite. Her eyes went wide. She made a small sound of surprise. Then tears started flowing down her face. "We were told that emotions make us weak," she said through her tears. "But I feel strong right now. I feel alive. Like I am finally awake after sleeping my whole life." She finished the sandwich slowly, crying the entire time. When she tasted the soup, warm and rich, she laughed through her tears. "I do not understand how something so simple can be so beautiful." Officer Dren was next. The old warrior was skeptical. "I have lived 60 years without taste. Why would I need it now?" "Because you deserve to experience joy before you die," Velthar said simply. "Because you have given your life to service. Because you should know what we are fighting for, not just what we are fighting against." Pete had prepared barbecue ribs, slow-cooked, tender, coated in a sweet and tangy sauce. The smell alone made Dren's nostrils flare. When Dren took his first bite, he went completely still. For a long moment, he did not move or speak. Then he carefully set the rib down and looked at his hands. "I have fought in 20 campaigns," he said quietly. "I have killed enemies I never met for causes I never questioned. I have lost friends in battle. I have seen terrible things." He picked up the rib again. "And in this moment, eating this food, I feel more alive than I have in 60 years. What does that say about my life?" He ate slowly, methodically, processing each bite. When he finished, he looked at Velthar. "We cannot keep this secret. Every Kryn deserves to know what has been taken from them." Ensign Paul had the strongest reaction. He was a thinker, someone who had always questioned things quietly. Pete prepared pasta with marinara sauce, simple but flavorful. Paul took one bite and his entire body began shaking. "This is wrong," he said. "This should not be possible. How can food make me feel this way?" "It is not wrong," Velthar said. "It is right. This is what we were meant to experience." Paul ate the entire plate without speaking. When he finished, he looked at Velthar with intensity in all 4 eyes. "Commander, this changes everything. If our leadership has kept this from us, what else have they hidden? What other lies have we been told?" "Those are dangerous questions," Velthar warned. "Good," Paul said. "Dangerous questions need to be asked." Now there were 4 of them. 4 Kryn who had tasted food and been changed by it. They met in secret, sharing their experiences and questions. Sketh discovered she loved sweet things. Dren preferred hearty, savory foods. Paul became fascinated with spices and complex flavors. But they also discussed the larger implications. If the Kryn had eliminated taste pleasure as a form of control, what else had been taken away? What other aspects of life had been suppressed to create perfect warriors? Helen watched their progress with scientific interest. "Your brains are literally rewiring themselves," she told them. "The neural pathways for experiencing pleasure are being rebuilt. But it is not just about food. You are all becoming more emotionally expressive in general, more curious, more engaged with life. Is that permanent?" Sketh asked. "I believe so. Once these pathways are activated, they seem to remain active. You are fundamentally changing as individuals." Velthar knew they needed a plan. They could not keep this secret forever. Eventually, someone would discover what they were doing. They needed to either hide it better or find a way to spread it wider. The decision was made for them when Commander Zen arrived. Zen was another Kryn officer who had been sent to check on Velthar's progress. She was older, highly decorated, and known for being by the book. Velthar expected her to be like Krell, suspicious and loyal to the old ways, but Zen surprised him. During their first private meeting, she said something unexpected. I heard rumors, Velthar. Strange rumors about what is happening here. Some say you have been compromised. Others say you have discovered something important. I need to know the truth. Velthar studied her carefully. Zen had kind eyes, unusual for a Kryn warrior. What do you believe? He asked. I believe that warriors serve best when they understand what they are protecting, she said. I believe that 3,000 years ago our people made choices that seemed logical at the time, but may no longer serve us. I believe that the coalition requires us to truly understand other species, not just evaluate them from a position of assumed superiority. Velthar made a decision. He trusted his instincts honed by 40 years of command. Come with me, he said. I want to show you something that will change your life. He brought her to the secure room where Jake, Helen, and Pete waited. On the table was a single plate. On the plate was a small dish of honey, golden and perfect. This is honey, Velthar explained. It is made by earth insects called bees. Humans have been eating it for thousands of years. It is purely sweet, unlike anything else. Zen looked at the honey suspiciously. You want me to taste this? I want to give you a choice, Velthar said. You can taste this and have your entire understanding of existence challenged. Or you can walk away, report what you have seen, and maintain your current worldview. But you cannot do both. Zen was silent for a long moment. Then she dipped her finger in the honey and brought it to her lips. The change in her expression was immediate. Wonder, shock, joy, all flickering across her face in rapid succession. She tasted the honey slowly, her eyes closing. When she opened them again, tears were falling. I am 70 years old, she whispered. I thought I understood life. I thought I knew everything important. She looked at the honey like it was treasure. How long has this existed? Millions of years, Helen said gently. Bees have been making honey longer than any civilization has existed. And we have lived all this time never knowing. Zen shook her head. This is what we eliminated. This beauty, this joy. In the name of efficiency, we removed the ability to experience wonder. She finished the honey, savoring every drop. Then she looked at Velthar. How many others know? 4 of us from my crew. Now 5 with you, and the humans who have helped us. We need more, Zen said firmly. This cannot stay secret, but we must be strategic. If we challenge the High Command directly, they will crush us. We need numbers.